Hello everyone, and welcome to RMX Software Tutorials. In today's video, we'll be talking about pivot tables. This is going to be covering the basic level of Microsoft Excel's pivot table. We're going to be covering or going over the outlines of introduction to pivot tables, preparing your data for pivot tables, and creating pivot tables. In addition to arranging the fields, basic formatting skills, and some basic customizations. I hope you guys enjoy it, so stick around. To create pivot tables, we need to have or start up with a normal dataset or a normal table in Excel. And by looking into this Excel worksheet, we have the admin department sample where we can see all types of furnitures, monitors, printers, laptops, and all of those which are just slammed onto the Excel sheet. What we're trying to do here, using pivot tables, we want to be able to convert this normal set into a pivot table to allow us to make more sense of the data. So, to create the pivot table, all we need to do is to select our data range, or perhaps just hit Ctrl A on the keyboard to select all of it, or by just being inside the dataset, we can always navigate onto Insert up here, and then navigate our way into Insert where we can go to Pivot Tables. By pressing on Pivot Tables, you'll be able to see the argument box. We can set the range which has been selected already. And then we can decide where do you want to create the new table, the pivot table. Whether you want it into a new worksheet or an existing one, like this one. So I'm just going to go with a new worksheet. And by selecting that option, I'm just going to hit OK. Now we have our pivot table initiated over here. Now we need to understand how pivot table works. By looking into the interface, we can see that all the way to the right side, we have all the fields categories, which if we wanted to take us back, we can actually go into the Office inventory and you can see the headings into each of the columns, and these are the fields. Down here, we do have 4 different regions, starting with filters, columns, rows, value. We're going to talk about columns, rows, and values. Each table depends on information being cross-referenced. So simply, if a column meets up with a row, it will generate a value, and that's called indexing. To start building the pivot table, we're going to select one of the fields here, like for instance, categories, and we're just going to throw it onto rows. And you can see that the categories we have mentioned within the table: electronics, furniture, office supplies. Now I want to see the quantity of these categories. So by clicking on quantity, I'm just going to put it into value here. So basically what I'm saying, set my categories as a row, and you can see that each one of them is being set within the row. And then I took on the quantity and put it as a value, basically asking Excel pivot tables to show the total values of each one of these categories. Now we're going to venture into a much more detailed section of it. Then selecting item name, we're just going to place it under category. And you can see that electronics will be decided to specify under desk chairs, keyboard, and so on. Next, we want to see the filter usage. And to use the filters, we're just going to try and take on, let's assume, suppliers. And I'm just going to click and drag for suppliers here. And you can see that a filter option popped up on top of the pivot table. This will allow us to actually select which suppliers information we want to see. It will eliminate all of the other results. By selecting from here, we can get to select multiple, where we can compare 2 or 3 suppliers to each other based on their supplying options. To clear the filter, we can manage to actually select all again, hit OK, and it will re-show the data as it used to be in first place. Keep in mind that if you try to use categories, for instance, as a filter, Notice and remember that category has been mentioned down here into the rows. So by dragging it over here, it's been pulled out of the row section and put into the filters. Now you do have it, and you can actually specify electronic or furniture and so on and so forth. This way you need to see what is the filter has been set to, and then you'll be able to tell which items you're looking at. Another way to do this is simply by eliminating the usage of the filter here, and that's what Excel have actually provided us. By selecting category and removing the field, we can manage to select over here the slicers and selecting category. Okay, and notice that it will show in here right next to it as a slicer. In regards to slicers, I'm not gonna go through this video all in depth all about slicers. Simply, we just wanted to show it as a feature that can be embedded into our pivot tables. I'm just gonna show you how to insert it, use it on a basic level really. So we have added over here our first slicer, and simply if you wanted to add more, by selecting anywhere inside your pivot table, by going up all the way to pivot table analysis right there, and then looking into the area where it says insert slicer, it's going to be under filters. By clicking on it again, and you'll be able to select a different aspect. Notice that I've selected a slicer for category first. Next I'm gonna go with, let's assume, item name. Just gonna press OK down here, and notice that the item name slicer has been added into our pivot table. So if I click on it, it will act as a filter, and it's much more well comprehensive, as it's mostly interactive to any of the users. To clear filter items, all you need to do is hit clear filter from over here, and then everything will go back to normal, as in to display the data. To delete slicers from your pivot tables or from the sheets, all you have to do is select the slicer and hit delete on the keyboard, or select it, right click, and you can actually get to hit remove category. That's also an option. This was a basic introduction to pivot tables to actually simplify the usage and how to get your way around it the first time. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you.